We finished our last session by looking at Jesus' final Passover meal with his disciples, where Jesus said as plainly as possible, I am about to pour out my blood like the Passover lamb to set you free from slavery. The Passover meal and the sacrifice of the lamb that it involved, those were the symbols. These next few chapters are the reality. Today's passage, Luke 22, takes us into one of the most mysterious and most sacred places in the Bible, the Garden of Gethsemane. Y'all, this is one of those passages I feel like I ought to go through on my knees. It's a holy place where I feel like anything that I can say falls so far short of what is actually happening. We ought to observe this scene and just tremble and worship. Luke 22, verse 39. And he came out and went, as was his custom, to the Mount of Olives, and the disciples followed him. And when Jesus came to the place, he said to them, pray that you may not enter into temptation. And he withdrew from them about a stone's throw, and he knelt down and he prayed. Verse 42, saying, Father, if you are willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And there appeared to him an angel from heaven, strengthening him, and being in agony, he prayed even more earnestly, and his sweat became like great drops of blood falling down to the ground. And when he rose from prayer, he came to the disciples and found them sleeping for sorrow. And he said to them, why are you sleeping? Rise and pray that you may not enter into temptation. And then they lifted up their eyes, and there was Judas and the temple guards coming to take away Jesus to be crucified. One of the first things that we have to notice is that Jesus does not go to his death with the defiance and the bravery that we might expect. Jesus appears in these verses weak, almost scared. By contrast, a lot of the world's great heroes have died with their fist in the face of the evil empire. Think scenes portrayed in a movie like Gladiator, dying defiantly, saying, you don't scare me, I'll never back down, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. Other Jewish heroes like Spartacus or Maccabees, they died in this defiant way. Plato says that Socrates, when he was executed, was cool and stoic. When he was given the hemlock to drink, he was calm. His color didn't change, and he even cracked a few jokes before his death. He was the picture of stoic defiance. Many of Jesus' own followers would die defiantly. Polycarp, for example, who was the student of the Apostle John, when they came to take Polycarp to be executed, burned at the stake, observers say that he went calmly. When asked what he would like to say before being burned alive, he said, you think I'm afraid of this fire? It's going to burn for just a minute and then it'll be gone. You should be afraid of the fires of hell. I'm not scared of these temporary flames. Come on, boys, bring on the fire. But that's not how Jesus went to his death. Like I said in this chapter, he almost seems weak. Luke points out in verse 43 that an angel showed up to strengthen him. This is the first time in Luke's gospel that something like that had happened. Everywhere else, Jesus shows unflinching courage in the face of danger. In fact, right before this, Jesus' disciples are telling him he's crazy for going to Jerusalem because he's sure to be in danger there. But Luke says he set his face like a flint to go to Jerusalem. Jesus had always been the bold, brave one, but now here in this garden, he's overwhelmed in agony, asking the Father to take the cup away from him. And it's not like, by the way, he's withering in the face of pain because the soldiers haven't even taken him captive yet. Mark's gospel says that when Jesus knelt down to pray, he began to be astonished and became deeply troubled. In Greek, it says he suddenly began to be astonished. In other words, all at once, Jesus saw something that hadn't been there before. And when he saw that thing, he was deeply troubled. What Jesus saw was so overwhelming and shocking that he almost died from it. In Mark 14:34, Jesus said, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. In Luke's account, Luke, our medical doctor, tells us that Jesus was under such strain that he began to sweat great drops of blood, a condition that doctors call hematidrosis, where you're under such distress that your capillaries burst. Here is Jesus, the only begotten Son of God, who spoke the worlds into existence, who walked on top of angry waves, calmed the fiercest storm, cast out demons with a word, healed diseases, brought life back from the dead. Here's Jesus so horrified at something that he sees that his capillaries burst, nearly causing his death. What can make the mighty Son of God so terrified? It was the judgment for our sin that he was about to endure. I want you to notice verse 42, what he prays. He says, Father, if you're willing, remove this cup from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. He calls God their Father, Abba, a term of the closest intimacy with God. You see, up until this point, Jesus had enjoyed an intimacy with the Father. It was his life. He often withdrew to be alone with God so that he could draw strength, and the Father had always radiated with openness to him, sometimes even, as we've seen, affirming him publicly. But now, in the hour that he needs him most, only silence. And so Jesus stumbles back to his disciples looking almost for some kind of comfort, and they're asleep. So he wakes them up and he says, guys, I need you to stay up with me. You see what I mean about weak and tender? There's something here. It's like he needs somebody. But his disciples are asleep and his Father seems silent, utter aloneness. Have you ever felt really alone? Like a friend, a trusted friend turned on you. Somebody you cared about betrayed you. Your parents failed you. Jesus felt that kind of aloneness. And not just aloneness, the pain of rejection. Have you ever really been rejected by somebody that you love? This is what Jesus went through. I think about what it would be like for me to do this to one of my children, to have them look to me in a moment of pain or weakness, and for me to turn away from them in scorn and say essentially, you're not my child, in the moment they most needed me. My children have only known me for a few years, and I'm not a perfect father by any means. So what was it like to lose the infinite love of the Father that you have enjoyed and known from all eternity? In Gethsemane, Jesus looked full into the cup of God's wrath, and it overwhelmed him so badly that it almost killed him. And so he prayed, if there's any other way, let this cup pass from me. But see, there was no other way. Isaiah 51:17 describes God's wrath against our sin like a toxic poison that's kept in a cup. As that cup was being offered to us, Jesus stepped into the way and he took it in our place and he drank it for us down to the dregs. Had you or I been there and we tried to stop Jesus and say, no, don't do this, he would have looked at us and said, no, JD, this cup is your cup. There is no other way for you to be delivered from this cup than for me to take it in your place. I heard a pastor say that this scene here in Gethsemane ought to make us do two things, and I'll add a third to his list. This scene should make us, number one, stand amazed at Jesus' love for us in his darkest hour. Remember that interesting little detail Luke pointed out, that an angel came to minister to him at this point. You ever wonder what the angel said to minister to him? We don't know. But again, the writer of Hebrews 12:2 says that when Jesus got up from here to go to the cross, he did so with joy because of something that had been set before him. What was it that had been set before him? What did Jesus see on the other side of the cross that he didn't have yet on this side? Was it his Father's approval? No, that was his before he left heaven. Was it rule over the universe? No, that was his before the foundation of the world. He could have wiped everything out with a wave of his hand and started over. The one thing that he wouldn't have, that he would only have on that side of the cross, is you. You were the joy set before him, which enabled him to endure the cross. Isaiah says that we were precious to him, which is hard to even get our minds around, because when something's precious to you, you'd give up anything for it. If one of my kids were deathly sick and there was only one medicine in the entire world that could save them, I wouldn't care how much it cost. I would pay anything because my children are precious to me. Listen, you were precious to God. A God who had everything and needed nothing set his love upon you, and he said, I can't be happy again until I have restored you. That's what God says to the prophet Hosea. Stand amazed at the love that Jesus showed for you in his darkest hour. And that leads me to number two. This scene should make us rest assured of Jesus' love for us in our darkest hours. You see, maybe you've gone through some dark chapters and it even felt like God had abandoned you or he wasn't listening to you. Well, see, you're wrong. You have to be. You see, Gethsemane proves you're wrong, because Jesus in that hour there in Gethsemane did not turn his back on you in his darkest hour when hell was literally squeezing the life out of him. If he didn't turn his back on you then, do you really think he would turn his back on you now? So when you say, why God, where are you? Why don't you answer my prayers? Or why don't you change these things I need you to change? You may not always be able to figure out the exact answers to what God is doing, but Jesus' time in the Garden of Gethsemane helps you see that the one thing your suffering cannot mean is that Jesus has forgotten about you or that he's abandoned you. If Jesus did not abandon you at this moment in Gethsemane, when hell was literally crushing him. He won't ever abandon you. Not in your darkest hour, not in your weakest moment, not for any reason ever. Finally, number 3, this scene should make us be driven by his love for the world in its darkest hour. Do you realize what Gethsemane tells us about Jesus' willingness to save sinners? Gethsemane shows us what it means for God to so love the world that he would give his only son. Gethsemane shows us how far the Father would run to bring home that wandering son and the price he would pay to buy us back from sin. If this is how the Father feels about the lost world, shouldn't you and I dream great things for God and then expect great things of him in helping us reach the world? Is there anything too great for us to ask him? Is there any request that would exhaust the limits of his love? Remember those words from the hymn writer John Newton, "Thou art coming to a king, so with thee large petitions bring. For his grace and power are such that none can ever ask too much." So here's my question. Is what you're asking God to do and what you're attempting for him, is it worthy of the magnitude of his sacrifice? You see, Jesus didn't die so that you and I could huddle together in churches and bemoan the dying state of our culture. He died so that we could bring the nations to worship. He died so your friends could be reconciled to the Father. Are you asking him to work in their lives in a way that is consistent with his sacrifice? Are you asking him to do great things in the lives of those around you according to the measure of his love expressed in Gethsemane? Friend, here's the reality. Jesus hadn't changed. The same Jesus we see praying in Gethsemane is the Jesus who hears our prayers today. We can literally never presume too much on God's grace.